article, which is pretty cool. I'm almost done, I promise. We'll talk about privatized within 3 countries, and then we'll talk about 2 NGOs, and then we're good. The United States has shifted to more privatized space acting. After the Challenger disaster in 1986, the policy of the United States shifted so that NASA would be a public sector provider. So they felt that they could provide better safety for space exploration. In 1984, Reagan signed into law the Commercial Space Launch Act.
The what?
The Commercial Space Launch Act. This allowed the American industry of private operators to create expendable launch systems, meaning what you just saw in there, which is a private corporation built their own, not only rocket, but launch area itself. Prior to this act, all commercial satellite launches in the United States were restricted by the federal government. In 1990, Bush signed into law the Launch Services Purchase Act. The Launch Services Purchase Act. The Launch Services Purchase Act. It ordered NASA to purchase launch services from commercial providers, which meant that it started shifting while it was a publicly funded or government-managed program, they purchased technology and space from commercial providers. It started becoming a shift towards the kind of privatization that we're seeing now. But a large chunk of why we're seeing the privatization in the United States now is Obama wants to stop human exploration in space. So he's cutting a large chunk of that and pushing for more like robotics in space. But even then, I think he's cutting a large chunk of just NASA's budget in general. The European Space Agency in 1980 created Ariane Space, ARIANESPACE. It is the world's first commercial space transportation company. Yeah?
Say that again.
Totally can. I don't know how to pronounce it, but I'll spell it. ARIANESPACE. Space Transportation Company. By 1995, they had put 100 satellites in space by themselves.
95?
I'm sorry? By 1995, yes. It has 23 shareholders, and all the shareholders have a pretty strong bias. They're all scientific, technological, financial, and political entities. And so those people will propel and push specific technologies and specific missions to space. And of those 23 shareholders, they're from like 10 different European countries. So it spans quite a large field, which is probably why it's one of the biggest ones in the world. All right,
Yeah,
time.
how many satellites up by 95?
100?
When were they founded?
1980. We'll skip Russia for right now. So here's the thing that I was trying to figure out. What's an NGO?
Non-Governmental Organizations.
Okay, so is a company an NGO?
No.
Why not?
You have to be credited as an NGO by the government.
Really?
I think so.
What does it mean to be credited by the
If
government?
the government says you're an NGO,
Yeah, but what makes them an NGO?
they do charity work. JK.
No, I'm not saying you're disagreeing. Because my thing is, so let's say Coca-Cola funds like a big science or space exploration. Does that make it an NGO? Like to me, private organizations are still non-governmental organizations that can fund things like humanitarian or space or all those things. It's just interesting because I don't understand whether or not private companies could be included under NGOs, but I think in terms of debate they would be, I think. Like the X Prize is an NGO that funds space, but it's still part of Google, which is like a corporation. Yeah?
According to Wikipedia,
Yeah?
what is an NGO? Unless they have government representatives, membership in the organization.
Yeah, it's just like, you have nothing to do with the government. It's like the only
Yeah.
Basically non-profit and voluntary citizens.
non-profit, that's probably what it was. All right. Well, thanks, everybody. See, Wikipedia is not terrible, just don't always trust it. That's all. All right, so there are some NGOs that are pretty big, and most of them are international. The biggest one is called the Planetary Society. Its main research is related to astronomy and environmental care in space. It was founded in 1980 by the lovely Carl Sagan. And it has members from over 125 countries in the world. And those members are some rich people. They donate buku amounts of money. 125. The society is dedicated to a couple things. The first is exploration on Mars, the search for near-Earth objects, and the search for extraterrestrial life. The last one we'll talk about is the Space Frontier Foundation. It is a space advocacy group organized to promote the interests of increased involvement in the private sector. So it's an NGO that's meant to promote more NGOs about space. The Space Frontier Foundation. And what it does is it works with governments to provide more leeway and services and to remove legal restrictions so that NGOs can engage in more space exploration.
Sorry, can you say that again?
Sure. Functionally, the name of it is the Space Frontier Foundation, and what it really does is it goes to governments and it says, look, you're not funding this program enough, your restrictions for NGOs are too strict, and their goal is to get it so that NGOs can work also independently but alongside governments for things like space development, research, and exploration. They're like an NGO for NGOs. That, my friends, is the end. Questions, comments, or concerns? Yes.
What was the foundation founded by Carl Sagan?
The Planetary Society. Harley.
On the Planetary Society, you said environmental care in space.
Yeah.
Like, what does that mean, like environmental care?
From when I was looking at the website, their big thing was into like elements and mining and finding like rare elements in space.
Oh, okay.
Their other thing, because they're really big into like searching for extraterrestrial life, is to find things like water or oxygen or how other beings may exist or survive in space. Yeah.
Are we not going over China as an international actor?
For time, no, but no, sorry. When I like that list to me originally, I had like 8 countries put up, like Sweden, Belgium, China was missing, Mexico has a new one, Pan Arab has a new one, some other ones. There's just a ton. I mean, it's a plethora of it, but yeah, I think it's that's why I think the video was to showcase that they're probably more of a growing, but they're also a developing space program. Yeah.
Did you skip Russia?
No, we talked about it.
Okay.
We talked about how now what Russia's doing, instead of privatizing or keeping their information secret, they're working more hand in hand. They only have one agency. Yeah.
Okay, so the Space Foundation,
Because they don't work with them to do projects, they work with them to help NGOs. Yeah. In the back, in the green,
On the Planetary Society, what were their 3 goals?
the Planetary Society,
Yeah.
exploration of Mars, the search for near-Earth objects, and the search for extraterrestrial life. Yeah.
What exactly was Bush trying to do when he did the 1991
That's the one where he made it more privatized. He made it so that 2 things. 1, the government wouldn't have to spend money on it, and 2, it meant that it fueled more competition in the market for like different companies and commercial spaces. But a large chunk, from my understanding, is that it was a way to cut back funding to NASA. Other questions? Okay. Oh, no in the back. Non-governmental organizations. And from our understanding, they are non-profit. What's the other one we found out?
They're voluntary.
Voluntary. It has 0 connection to the government in terms of who works for them and who they support.
Tax rates.
And they get taxes or tax rates.